Okay, so we have talked a lot throughout the course of the day on like the state of the organization in New England with the Los Angeles Chargers and so on and so forth. Let's talk about some teams, Michael, that are actually doing well right now, where people are happy, things are going well in your top 5 updated power ratings list. And you say this all the time, but these are exclusively based on numbers. These are not opinion based. But my opinion is right on with who your number 1 team is in the NFL.
Well, they have played so well, it's hard to argue with their success when you go over the 18 categories that determine winning and how they've been able to dominate that. The urgency to get the lead, to play from in front, to utilize their rush, to let Steve Wilks kind of got comfortable with where they are defensively is really impressive. And the same thing for the Cowboys. Look, the Cowboys give up yards. You can move the ball on them, but you got to protect the ball. And you've got to be able to block them. And there's a lot of teams in the league that can't block them. That's why we've seen them play so well at home because, bad offensive lines on the road when they go against a good offensive line, not so good. If this game was in Buffalo, if it was in Dallas as opposed to being in Buffalo, it'd be a little bit of a different story. But to me, that's where they're so good. Baltimore, I left last week, Stormy. I know their numbers are really good. I just don't know how good they are defensively. I don't know how good they are. Buffalo, to me, they're led by their offense, led by the ability to play from in front, rush the passer, all those things, which they got pressure on Mahomes. I mean, they got pressure on Mahomes. Kansas City is down. Miami, their numbers have been trending upwards defensively and downwards offensively, but last week got them.
So can you talk to me a little bit more about why you are down on the Baltimore Ravens defensively? Like, what do you think is wrong? Because when you look at the numbers, you see them as the number 2 defense in terms of total yards allowed.
Right. So when you look at those defensive numbers, right, you always go to say, okay, what quarterback have we played? Like, who has been able to move the football on us? Like, who have we played that's really good? And when you go through it, you sit there and say, okay, they got, they got Cleveland came in at home. Cleveland moved the ball on them. Detroit had a bad day. They beat Tennessee. Seattle, Geno didn't play well. Is Geno an elite quarterback or an elite game plan guy? I mean, when you get those two elements together, elite game plan and elite quarterback, like we saw last week with the Rams, and then they expose who you are, that game's worth more than all the stats. That's the one that causes me the concern to say, wait a minute, if they get in the playoffs and they have to play against Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl, we're going to see that in 2 weeks. Or this week against Jacksonville, which can throw the football. Now, this is kind of a difficult situation for Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't played worth the darn at home against good teams all year. We haven't seen them beat a good team at home. They got blown out by San Francisco. They haven't been able to play very well. They got beat by Houston earlier in the season at home. So, you're worried about them. Kansas City went in there and beat them without any offense, really? And so, this is a big test for Jacksonville, and it's going to be a big test for my evaluation of Baltimore's defense. Like all those other numbers, I think they're irrelevant because they don't talk about, you're playing Pickett, you're playing bad quarterbacks. And so, until you play, your schedule is all about how many good quarterbacks you play. Next 3 weeks, they've got Jacksonville, Lawrence, good quarterback. I wouldn't say he's elite yet. They got San Francisco, Purdy's really good. Their offense is elite. And then Miami, their offense, when Hill's going, can be elite or at least throw the ball effectively.
That game on Sunday Night Football, the Ravens a 3-point favorite on the road in Jacksonville. We did get the update. Trevor Lawrence practiced in full today, so good to see that the ankle is feeling better. Obviously, he played through it this past weekend regardless. That game flexed into the Sunday night spot after Patriots-Chiefs was taking off. They didn't want to put New England in that primetime position once again. The 49ers, because you say their offense is elite, 17-0, Michael, when Purdy, McCaffrey, and Debo are all healthy, including the playoffs. Yeah. It is easily the best roster in the league right now. Is the only thing that, in your mind, is the only thing that will hold them back come playoff time injuries? Or is somebody else's best better than theirs to you?
Well, no, I don't know because I don't know if there's a coordinator on the NFC side that's going to be able to take away what they do. Kyle will find an answer, right? He'll figure out an answer for how to solve the problem. That's the problem with Green Bay the other night. LaFleur never figured out the answer. He kept trying to run jet sweep. How many more jet sweeps was he going to run, right? And the same thing defensively. Joe Barry, you got to solve the problem at the game. And maybe Dallas could, and Dan Quinn's a good coach. Maybe they can, or they can control the football for a long time. But I don't know. Philadelphia is going to still have the same problems. I mean, Philly's not the same offensive team. They're not the same defensive team. Losing Gannon and Steichen really hurt their team. It really did.
Yeah.
They're not the same creativity on offense that they were. I mean, you could see Steichen in Indianapolis, and you could see his influence in the Philadelphia offense. And, I'm not saying Johnson's not a good coach. All I'm saying is he's not to where Steichen was.
Yeah, and I think that win for Dallas this past week was huge for them to get that redemption. Dak has been playing unbelievable. His touchdowns over the last 7 games, 22 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions over the last 7 for him. So they've been dynamite. The Eagles, to your point, they've been out of your top 5 now back-to-back weeks. They've had a few rough games. Kansas City 2 drops down 1. Miami back out of that group. It's only the one performance that was, it was a rough group. But Dolphins finally got into your top 5. They were working so hard. They get bumped out. Let's go to the bottom 5 now, because we have had a little bit of shuffling there with the Giants winning this past Monday night against those Packers. They are up to, still 30th of 32, but they are up to. Carolina is at the bottom of the barrel as expected, followed by the Commanders, Giants, Arizona Cardinals, and the Tennessee Titans come into your bottom 5 despite the biggest upset of the season on Monday night against Miami.
And that where they kind of was, the defense kind of bailed them out a little bit at times. I mean, they got the ball at the 12-yard line on the 7, and they gave up points, but they didn't really give up all those explosive plays to Miami. You know what I find interesting? I moved the Giants up. Nobody could explain this to me. How are Carolina? They went into New Orleans last week. And really, if you watch the game, New Orleans was bad. I mean, it was bad. And it had no business covering whatsoever. It really was bad. And if you were on the Saints, you got lucky in the handicap, because the Panthers were a bad team and they played poorly. But they were a 5.5, 6-point dog, and all the sharps were in on that one. So much professional money was coming in on Carolina. They were really the sleeper pick of the week. And now this week, with the Tommy DeVito insanity, or Linsanity, I mean, he's replaced him. I mean, they're a 6-point dog going in there. And yet I don't have any urgency to believe that they can beat them. Like, I don't think the Giants are any good. Like, that game did nothing for me except discredit the Green Bay Packers.
Oh,
and
that's
I would
cold.
I would think the Saints should be able to do a lot better than what the Packers did, but I don't trust it.
So why don't you trust it? Is it similar to how, like, when you see a coaching change, the Raiders, I think, are a prime example, where you see that pop of energy, the motivation shifts, and there's a guy that you're wanting to play for, you win a couple games, and then it starts to die off. Is it the same thing with the quarterback, where he has been kind of like rejuvenating the franchise to an extent? People are having fun with it. The tailgates are going crazy. Everybody in Jersey loves the Jersey native and Tommy Cutlet's story. Is it that, and then it's going to die down, you think? Is that why, or what's your perspective?
End. I mean, Tommy's getting his 15 minutes of fame. It's not going to last much longer. I'm just saying, okay? It's a wonderful story. It's great. Love it. Tremendous. It's going to end soon against a Dennis, and it should end against Dennis Allen. My concern about this game is Derek Carr and Wink Martindale blitzing him all the time, and Carr, throwing checkdowns like it's his job. And Carr getting hurt. Last week, they got 207 yards against the Carolina Panthers. They had 110 yards passing in the game. That's the concern.
I told you, I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was like 12 of 18 or something like that to start the game for 37 yards. Like, how do you have 12 completions and 37 yards?
Add the fact that they've lost 4 in a row. They lost 3 in a row going into the game. And easily could have. Carolina didn't punt after the first quarter. Carolina was 1 for 7 on 4th down in the game.
Remarkable. It's that's the only word I can really use to describe it.
And so how do you put any faith? Not that the Giants are good. I'm not saying they are, but the Giants haven't lost a game. Now, I think playing on the road in New Orleans for Tommy DeVito is going to be a challenge, assuming that we get the who dat crowd coming out for it, which, I would think they would. But I have no faith in this New Orleans. New Orleans offense is only good when they can get behind and they can throw it, and they get they got 444 yards against the Falcons, or they get behind against the Lions and they go, he throws for another 250. When the game is tight, when does he make a play?
Real quickly, how far out of the bottom 5 are the Steelers?
Oh, I got it right here, Stormy. I would say they're in the bottom third of the league right now, just numeric. I mean, they always have been down there. Let me give it. I don't have it ranked order.
Yeah, I was just curious because
I would say there's 6 teams out of the bottom, out of there. So they're they're 21st.
Okay. I was just curious because you look at the minus 40 point differential. Obviously, they're the only team in the league that has a winning record at a negative point differential. And so I was curious where they stack up. So, yeah, despite being in a playoff position right now. Go ahead.
Their defensive numbers get them high.
Right.
That's what helps them.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.